Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Today I'm in this 2004 Hyundai Terracan. I was going to film with this a few weeks ago, but when I went to the car park where I'd stored it because I had no space at work, when I went back there to fire it up, the exhaust was blowing terribly. So I got down on my hands and knees and realised that it wasn't just a hole in the back box or anything, somebody had stolen the catalytic converter. Whilst we were on lockdown, I might add. Which is an increasingly common issue, and I don't know what can be done to stop it. Only perhaps if scrapyards stopped accepting them, perhaps, maybe that would work. But incidentally, the cost of a new catalytic converter is about 250 quid. So, not the end of the world, but it's just annoying that somebody would steal somebody else's possession. Especially on a 2004 car like this, because I can only imagine what rusty state the original catalytic converter was in. I mean, what use is that to anybody? Anyway, getting distracted here while I go off on a bit of a rant. So, the Hyundai Terracan, if you don't know much about cars, you might think that it looks a little bit like a Toyota Land Cruiser. And you're right, it does. It's a boxy, old-school four-wheel drive. In fact, I had one of these cars a couple of years ago at work. It was a 2007 and it had done about 100,000 miles. But it only had two owners, full service history including a timing belt change. It was in good condition. Mechanically, I thought it was sound. Anyway, I was stood on the forecourt chatting to a customer who was interested in it. The engine was running, it was ticking over. And he said those fatal words to me. He said, "Oh, it's just like a Land Cruiser, but half the price, isn't it?" So I agreed. Anyway, with perfect comic timing, the engine cut out, and that was it. And I never ever got it running ever again. In the end, I sold it for scrap and lost about £2,000 in the process. So I don't know what went wrong there, but I must have just got a bad one. So that was my last experience with the Terracan. Anyway, I bought this one because I don't learn from my mistakes. But no, seriously, I bought this one because it's only had one owner from new in 16 years, and it's only done 44,000 miles, and the condition's excellent. So I thought I'd buy it, even if it's only just to do a YouTube video with, because the Terracan isn't a car that you see every day. In fact, I can't recall the last time I saw one. If you don't know much about the Terracan, I don't blame you really, because neither did I. They didn't sell in huge numbers here in the UK. They were only available from 2001 to 2007. Under the bonnet was a 2.9 litre J-Series 4-cylinder turbo diesel, which was also found in the Kia Sedona or Kia Carnival. And they also offered it with a 3.5 litre V6, which I think is the same engine that was featured in my Kia Sorento video I did a couple of months ago. But the diesel was the most popular one here in the UK with high fuel prices. I was living in Spain during the mid-2000s, and the Hyundai Terracan was quite popular there. Also quite popular in Spain at the time was a Galloper. Now that was like a sub-brand of Hyundai, and it was called the Galloper Exceed, and it was basically a rebadged old-shaped Shogun. They were quite a strange thing really, but it just demonstrates that relationship between Hyundai and the Japanese firm Mitsubishi. Anyway, back to the Terracan. Styling-wise, if I was being polite, I would call it utilitarian and functional. But if I wasn't, I'd probably say it's a little bit ugly. It's almost like a police sketch of a Land Cruiser or Shogun. I think the fact that this is two-tone, the lower body panels are a different colour, does make it look a little bit dated. And that line of two-toneness rises too high in the car. It's like it's waded through a river of paint. The River Dulux, if you will. I always thought the area around the filler door was weird. The fact that they've notched out around the rear arch to accommodate the filler door is just a massive afterthought. Interior space isn't bad, it's quite spacious and quite roomy. Visibility is superb because not only are you sat up high, but the windscreen's steep and all the other windows around you are completely flat, so you can just see everything. You see over these stone walls with ease. The Terracan was only offered as a 5-seater, which is odd because you'd have thought for such a big car it could quite easily accommodate a third row seating, and it would have been that little bit more practical for most families and probably would have sold in greater numbers. The boot is huge and the spare is mounted under the car, so that doesn't impede boot space. There are lots of storage compartments in the door cards. I've got a couple of cup holders. Seats are very comfortable and soft. This one's finished in nice soft leather. You've got grab handles everywhere. It is like an old school four-wheel drive. And that, of course, is what it drives like. It drives like an old truck, this. They've tried to make this top spec model more luxurious by throwing fake wood and leather everywhere. And the result is a little bit laughable because it isn't high end. It's like imitation luxury. It's faux opulence. It's like being in a Chrysler 300C from the mid-2000s. Behind me at the moment is a 2002 Land Rover Defender, and the only way that you would think that this Terracan was luxurious was if you jumped out of that into this. It's almost as if the designers at Hyundai at the time said, right, we want to make a car that competes with the Range Rover, but you're only allowed to buy your materials from Poundland. It's slightly unfair of me to judge this car sat here in 2020, because I imagine back in 2004 it was alright. You can see they've taken inspiration from Toyota from many angles. I mean, even things like the remote key fob looks like the one that you would find on a Toyota of this era. It's a blatant rip-off. Fuel-wise, don't expect Prius running costs. It's an old-fashioned heavy four-wheel drive car that's not aerodynamic at all. So expect to get low 20s around town, in MPG I'm talking, by the way. Low 20s around town, high 20s on a motorway run, but you won't get more than that from it. Road tax here in the UK, because this is a 2004, it's £330 a year. For 06 and 07 cars, they will cost you £560 a year. This 2.9 litre engine produces a laughable 150 horsepower, and it's mated to a 4-speed automatic gearbox. I mean, these are very 90s figures. Which means, if I come to a stop here and put my foot down to the floor, you get a little bit of power when the turbo kicks in, but it's all very underwhelming. The engine's quite loud and unrefined. The gearbox is quite slow to respond. It's all very, very agricultural. But, I mean, to be fair, it would make quite a good workhorse. They're very good tow vehicles if you've got a caravan or a horse box, because they'll tow 2.8 tonnes. Because it's a tall, boxy, body-on-frame truck, the amount of body roll you get is laughable. Let me try and demonstrate this to you. I feel a bit seasick now. They are pretty good off-road vehicles. If you put a decent set of tyres on this, it will take you anywhere. They have low range and lock-in diffs, so they really are quite capable off-road. As they age, you do need to watch out for rust, because they do rust quite badly. I doubt you'll find any Terracans out there here in the UK that don't have any rust on them. I'd recommend you get it wax oiled regularly just to try and protect it. Also, this engine has a timing belt which needs to be replaced every 5 years or 60,000 miles, which is quite a short interval. I've just had it replaced on this car because there was no evidence of it being done. And that cost me about £300, so that's something that you need to bear in mind if you're buying one. The one that I owned a couple of years ago that broke on me, I suspect that was a snap timing belt, although it had been done according to the service history. Perhaps the rubber just decomposed or something and it just went. I'm not sure, I never got to the bottom of it. Apart from the timing belt, you've just got regular servicing costs which aren't too high. Things like brake discs, pads, tyres, they're no more expensive than your standard car. This particular Terracan with 44,000 miles on the clock is probably a testament to its previous owner rather than to Hyundai's build quality, because everything works. I'm sat here with the air conditioning on, which is like being in Norway in the winter. It's ice cold. All the windows work, remote central locking works, everything I've tried works. It's not nice to drive, it's not nice to look at, and it's not cheap to run. I'm really selling this to you, aren't I? But on the plus side, if you're after a cheap workhorse, then it's really not that bad. It's no worse than a Grand Cherokee this era, or a Daihatsu 4-track, or a, Isuzu Trooper. They're all about this sort of quality. Unless you pay a little bit extra for a Shogun, or a lot more and get a Land Cruiser, they're all this sort of standard. You do have some Korean quirks in that the indicator's on the right hand side, not the left. So you try and turn left with your indicator, and you get the wipers. I think had Hyundai released this in the mid-90s, it would have done alright. But by 2007, you know, people were buying Porsche Cayennes and BMW X5s, and they were just far better, far more modern. All those newer SUVs really show the prehistoric nature of the Terracan. Amongst other body-on-frame trucks from the 90s, the Terracan can hold its own, but against more modern SUVs, it really can't. Used prices here in the UK start from around £1,500. That'll get you a high-mileage manual with no spec. For one like this with such low miles, I mean, there really is nothing out there like it. They're quite a rare car now in the UK. There really aren't that many for sale. If you have a look on Auto Trader, there won't be any more than a couple of dozen of these. They range anywhere from a couple of grand all the way up to 5 or 6 grand. So anyway, I just thought I'd do a quick video with it because it's one of those cars that you've probably forgotten existed. And this was such a nice one, I thought it was worthy of doing a video with. So if you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do. If you've got any comments or questions, let me know below and I'll do my best to get back to you. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll leave the link below. And yeah, that's about it. Take care, guys. See you soon.